Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight another class in the series of classes on Sagittarius ascendant and Jupiter in the different signs. Tonight we're going to be doing Jupiter in Scorpio, and Jupiter in Scorpio is an interesting combination. It's because in this case Jupiter falls in the 12th house, the house of suffering, the house of secret enemies, the house of hospitalizations, institutionalizations, exiles, all sorts of different things here. It's not considered a good house, so it can sometimes be very challenging to have the ruler of 1 in 12. Like we said, it's a spiritual combination too. A lot of people that are in the spiritual path, they tend to have the ruler of 1 in 12. Because the 12th house, in a certain way, is rules the soul. Every two houses is a pair. Someday we talk about that in our classes on esoteric astrology. And the first house is the body, the 12th house is the soul, and they're a pair. And so let's start. So a person who can have 1 in 12 can also correct himself or herself through the spiritual path, having 1 in 12. Right? And there's a very famous kabbalist of the 20th century, probably the greatest kabbalist of the 20th century, and he said like this. He said a person has two ways to fix things. They either fix things by doing Torah and the mitzvot and the commandments. They do the commandments and they study God's laws, or they fix themselves through suffering. And that can be the 12th house. So when one has 1 in 12, you have those two choices. There's going to be fix themselves through the spiritual path, or a tendency towards fixing themselves through suffering. Tonight, well, let's go on. So when you have Sagittarius ascendant, Sagittarius is a chart that really it goes for spirituality, right? This Jupiter is the great good fortune because it goes for the proper behavior, the right action, the sign of wisdom. They're searching out wisdom, the Sagittarians. They're after the higher things in life. And so when you put the ruling planet in the 12th, which is going to be in the sign of Scorpio, which is maybe the most intense emotional sign of all the different signs in the zodiac. So then you can have a conflict between the higher desires and the emotional needs. And so a lot of time the person can get sort of tripped up through the emotional needs, because they become his or her secret enemy, as the case may be. Right. And another way of looking at it is that the 9th house is Sagittarius is religion, and the 8th house is death, and the death is the great enemy of religious belief. Right? It's the famous question: why do bad things happen to good people? And yeah, everybody dies, and that's supposedly a bad thing. And so that's another way of looking at this conflict. Remember, all sorts of conflicts can be looked at in many different ways. I'm just giving you like some examples. And you could, take it in, there's billions and billions of people in the world today, 6 billion people, and there were in the last generation, the generation before. And everybody, it can be a little different how they're going to see that conflict within themselves between the Sagittarius on the ascendant and Scorpio in the 12th house, the ruling planet. But I'm using the standard classic case, let's say, of the conflict between the spirit and the emotions. And so when you have the ruler of the 12, ruler of 1 in 12 in Scorpio, you're going to see a big conflict between the person's spiritual path and their emotional needs. Tonight I'm going to actually do a chart that actually fits in quite well with this. This is a man I don't know too much about him, but he was a priest, very, very tremendously successful priest. He had a radio talk shows, syndicated all throughout America. He wrote musical albums, gospel albums. The man was immensely popular, and he had thousands and thousands of supporters that gave him money, and he had a ministry that he got people to go back to the good old time religion. He traveled around the country recruiting people, trying to get them to confess their sins and to repent and to be born again. All of that, the usual way that things work in America. He had television shows, everything. And so you see that in his chart right away. If you look at his chart, he's got the Sagittarius ascendant and Jupiter in Scorpio in the 12th. So the spiritual, the need for the spiritual, but he's got the Jupiter exactly square to his Pluto. And so when a person has Jupiter-Pluto squares, Jupiter is religion, and Pluto is power, obsession, and so the person becomes obsessed with religion. And he is fighting for religion. Pluto is Martian in nature, so it's a person fighting for religion. Remember, the planets are so close together, they're almost exactly 90 degrees, so the intensity of that aspect is going to be overwhelmingly powerful, and he's going to go out there and try to recruit and convert people. And that's what he did. Right? If you look at his chart even more closely, he's got also the Sun. The Sun is exactly... He's got a very powerful grand trine. The Sun is exactly trine Pluto and exactly trine Jupiter. So he became very, very successful in immense popularity, immense support, immense success, wealth. Everything came to him, right? Pluto, Jupiter brings wealth. It's one of the aspects that is a wealth aspect. Because Jupiter is also money. Right? When you got that Pluto there, the obsession with money. And so he obsessed on it and became very wealthy. But if you look a little closer at his chart, you see, first of all, that Jupiter is very close to the 12th house cusp, and and more than that, it's 12 signs from the ascendant, so it's basically working for the 12th. And if you look at its dispositor of Jupiter is Mars. Mars is in Libra in detriment. And Libra gives itself up to Venus, and Venus is also in detriment in Aries. So the horoscope tends to be going backwards, right? It's a disevolvement in the chart. It started off a little better, and then it got taken over by the planets in detriment. Right, and he of course, he had Mars and Venus, the two planets connected with relationships between men and women, both in detriment, and he had a propensity to be with prostitutes, and so they found him. He turned one of his colleagues in and got him defrocked. And the colleague got back at him by hiring private detectives to snoop on him, and they found that he had a secret place where he had prostitutes would come and visit him. And so he got severely castigized by the church the first time, and then they caught him a second time in a car. I guess he had just picked up a prostitute on the street, and so to say the least, it had a big harm to his career. So this is an exaggerated case. Don't think everybody is going to have Jupiter in Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising with Jupiter in Scorpio is going to go out like that. It's again, it's people have free will, and they can use it again to get to a spiritual level. But they're going to be tested in this lifetime when you have the ruler of 1 in 12. And so his chart, though, you see right away, if you look at that Venus, the Jupiter, and you see the tight aspect to the Sun and Pluto, you would right away say there's going to be important things in this man's life, right? It's a very powerful chart, and to a certain degree. But the ascendant is in a sense weak, because Jupiter is taken over by 2 planets in detriment. And also, if you look at his Venus is in detriment in Aries, and it's a tight conjunction to Uranus, so he's not happy with one woman, and at all, to say the least. And so he went off in that direction. And you probably could have predicted that from his horoscope, all the different challenges that he would be facing. And I thank everybody for listening.